Looking Through the Eyes of a Student with Nonverbal Learning Disorder by Katina Proen.
Hi, my name is Katina Proen, and I created this presentation for my Girl Scout Gold Award project. The Girl Scout Gold Award is the highest award a Girl Scout can earn. It teaches girls many different life skills such as organizational skills, time management skills, and planning skills. I was diagnosed with nonverbal learning disorder when I was 13 years old. I hope this presentation helps.
What is nonverbal learning disorder, also known as NVLD? All the stuff that involves understanding relationships, concepts, patterns. These deficits are all things related to the right hemisphere of the brain, which can affect a child's ability to do a surprising variety of things. Physical coordination, social interaction, problem solving, organizing thoughts, and planning. All of these things can be challenging. They seem very different, but the unifying theme is that each requires the ability to recognize patterns or concepts and then apply them to new situations. The 5 areas of NVLD. Number 1, visual and spatial awareness. Number 2, high order comprehension. Number 3, social communication. Number 4, math concepts. Number 5, executive functions. Now let's look at these areas individually. Visual and spatial awareness. Trouble understanding visual imagery. For example, when they are asked to copy a shape like a cube, they produce profound distortions. They can't accurately perceive the cube, the forms that make up the cube, and the relationships between them. Hence, they can't copy the cube. High order comprehension. High order comprehension is the ability to identify the main idea in something, the details that support the main idea and the relationships among them. This affects kids' ability to comprehend reading and writing or tell a story effectively. It also affects taking notes. Some kids essentially take down everything the teacher says because they don't know what's important. Other kids do not know what is important, so they don't take down anything, and people think that they're not paying attention, or they take down all the wrong things. Social communication. Most students with nonverbal learning disorder have trouble reading emotions and facial cues and body language, so they often don't know what's going on in a social interaction. They miss the social patterns that other kids pick up automatically, so they don't know what is appropriate behavior in a given situation. Difficulties with social communication is one reason why kids with nonverbal learning disorder often focus on technology. Math concepts. Many kids with nonverbal learning disorder are very good at rote learning, and they are able to do well in math just by memorizing data. But as they get older, they struggle to solve more advanced mathematical problems that are based on recognizing concepts and patterns. Even with a problem they have seen before, if it's approached differently or modified slightly, they have trouble recognizing it. Executive functions. Executive functions are a set of skills we use to organize our thinking, plan, and carry out actions and figure how to problem solve. Most kids with nonverbal learning disorder have a weakness in these organizing and planning functions. For instance, they struggle with breaking down a project into smaller pieces or conceiving steps that need to be taken down into smaller steps. These kids have trouble figuring things out. In fact, they don't really know what figuring something out means. We have to help them learn to do just that. The step-by-step process you go through. Common characteristics: excellent rote memory and difficulty with complex thinking, low muscle tone, also known as hypertonia, lack of coordination and balance, so large motor skills, difficulty with fine motor skills, poor vision recall, the inability to understand nonverbal communications, such as sarcasm, idioms, figurative speech, facial expression, body language, and etc. More common characteristics are reduced ability for social interactions, slow processing speed, executive functioning issues, concrete and literal, and poor social judgment and interaction. Now here are some video participants who've answered survey questions.
Some of the characteristics of NVLD that I have include difficulty with social interactions, trouble with visual spatial skills, strengths with verbal ability and strong rote memory, and I guess thinking outside the box. Oh, and math. I also, I know math is one of the characteristics, math difficulty is one of the characteristics of NVLD. I was mostly fine with math. I took math all the way through Calculus 2, and most of the time it wasn't an extreme struggle. However, I noticed that I struggled more with visual spatial concepts and taking integrals and using integrals to determine 3D shapes, three-dimensional shapes.
Nonverbal learning disorder has a lot of different characteristics. It is overwhelming, but with the right accommodations and understanding of NVLD by teachers, NVLD students will succeed. I was able to graduate high school with honors.
Do you have anything else to share regarding your NVLD in school, such as what teachers have done that is helpful? So what teachers have done that is helpful is made like the print bigger for me, let me fidget, like take like breaks or get to move around by like handing out binders or handing out other things, and explaining directions clearly and helping me one-on-one.
How teachers impact students with nonverbal learning disorder. Stop saying that they're not trying, because if you want the student to think that you care, they will try less if you keep saying that. The student can be very emotional when they don't understand what is going on in the classroom. Maybe it's an obstacle to learning and not something mentally wrong with them. Regular check-ins with student does not have to be school related. It could just be about like how their day was or how their home life is or what they're doing this weekend, or to just try to build a relationship with them, because then they're going to just be more open to ask for help and to just want to do work to make you proud.
Number 3, I want teachers to know that I need help with social skills at school, and not just help with the schoolwork?
I think something that can be difficult for me that I would want teachers to know regarding nonverbal learning disability is sometimes we can be too trusting of others unknowingly. Therefore, I've been in several situations where perhaps a classmate asked me about something, such as to see homeworks and projects, and or to work on something that maybe the teacher didn't explicitly say we could work on. In those kinds of situations, I was often more willing than I should have been to follow through with their request. And in those instances, my parents have often alerted me to that fact that the teacher may not have specified that was acceptable. And so I think understanding that often we are not trying to break rules, and we are not trying to cheat or do anything wrong. I would want teachers to know that we mean it, that people with a nonverbal learning disability really mean it. I think it would also be good for teachers to understand that we do thrive on, or I do thrive on step-by-step directions that are sequential rather than a multitude of directions all at the same time. Those are two big things that I think would be good for a teacher to understand.
What is it about NVLD that you want teachers you know about how you learn best, and what is difficult for you? I learn best when I have a moving chair, spinning chair, when I have fidgets, when I don't have to handwrite a lot, or when I can type, and when they explain directions clearly, and when stuff is interactive and not boring, like when we get to use Canva for projects, for instance. Because I find that I focus better on stuff when I'm interested in it and when it's not boring.
What is it like for nonverbal students to work on team projects?
Question 4. What is it like for me to work on group projects? Well, to be quite honest, I hate them. There's so many dynamics that are hard to navigate with NVLD when doing a group project. Who's going to do what, how to divide it up, how to all of that. A student with NVLD or a person with NVLD, they struggle just with a regular project and how to figure it out and to tackle it. But then you're throwing them into a social situation. And at the same time, with a huge task. It's going to be terrible. It's torture. So it's really important, if you have to do group work, that you're very particular in who you choose to have work with that student. And what one of the biggest things is, I know I struggled. I had NVLD. I didn't know up until I was 17, turning 18 years old. However, with every project or pairing or any of that, a lot of times I got put with the child who had Down syndrome, which I have no problem with working with people with disabilities at all. I mean, I have one. I was brought up working with family members who would have me volunteer with people who had varying abilities and challenges and stuff. So I have no problem with that. However, I found, looking back, I find it kind of interesting that I was always paired that way. And so I never got to really work with, quote, typical, close quote, peers, or did so very minimally. And if I did, I got made fun of and picked on. So, group projects, not a good thing.
How NVLD affects social interactions. The lack of ability to comprehend nonverbal communication, difficulties adjusting to the transitions and novel situations, significant deficits in social judgment and social interactions. Friendships are hard to make because of the misunderstanding of nonverbal situations and sarcasm. Friendships are also hard to make because of lack of understanding personal space.
What is it like for me to make friends? Well, quite honestly, it's rough. It sucks. Making friends is difficult because you have to be able to perspective take. And perspective taking is difficult for NVLD people. You have to know how to interact socially, based on how well you know this person. How close do I do I get to them? How far away? Do I hug them? When is it okay to hug them? Is it not okay to hug them? Do I ask this? All of these types of things go into making friends. And then not just making them, but being able to keep them.
Here are some of the survey results. Teachers in universities. Question 1. In college, what did you learn about learning disabilities? All the gen education teachers had very little education on learning disability. The special ed teacher that I interviewed had basic education on learning disabilities. Question 2. In college, what did you learn about nonverbal learning disorder? All responded that they did not remember learning about nonverbal learning disorder. Teacher survey results, question 3. As a teacher, what professional learning have you had on teaching kids with learning disabilities, especially kids with nonverbal learning disorder? All general education teachers had very little professional education. A few teachers researched nonverbal learning disorder on their own time. A special education teacher had some professional development classes, but not specific to NVLD. University survey results. Question 1. When pursuing a teaching degree as a general education, what do your students learn about learning disabilities? University 1. Every student in the College of Education takes a course, Introduction to Disability, where they are introduced to all of the IDEA disability categories, including learning disabilities. University 2, Gen Ed doesn't have any special ed classes. They just have the normal general ed classes that you have to take. Question 2, if they do learn about learning disabilities, is there anything taught about nonverbal learning disorder? University 1, they are taught about nonverbal learning disorder in the introduction to the disability course. University 2, the intro class to special ed class is required currently, but every teacher education program does it differently. And again, it's not just for learning disabilities, it's all for special ed. Question 3. What is taught in your general special ed program regarding learning disabilities? University 1. We have an undergraduate and graduate program in learning disabilities. We cover all the topics such as identification, characteristics, assessments, inclusion strategy, evidence-based strategies to assist with those with a learning disability, along with many hours of talking and reading about reading difficulties and dyslexia. University 2. During the 2 weeks I spent on learning disabilities in my introduction course, I reviewed nonverbal learning disorder, but briefly. Not many people know much about it in general ed and how it is labeled and serviced in special education has changed over the years. It's still a bit of a mystery. Question 4. Question 4. What is taught in your special ed learning disability certificate program about nonverbal learning disorder? University 1. It is covered in many classes such as the introductory practicum class. Students read and give presentations about it in the learning disability theory class. Each type of learning disability is pretty well integrated into every class. A learning disability endorsement candidate takes of their requirements. University 2 does not have a certificate program at this time. Parent-student survey highlights. The following are some of the answers to the survey questions. We had more parents answering. Question 2, what grade are you in? We had more college students answer than younger. What are the nonverbal learning characteristics you possess? Most said poor executive functioning, inability to understand nonverbal communication, poor social skills, and slow processing. And then the other ones vary. Question 4. Other characteristics of NVLD that you possess. Dyscalculia, which is like math difficulties, poor visual spatial awareness, visual information, naive, kind to a fault, and high anxiety. Question 5. What would you wish your teachers knew about nonverbal learning disorder to help make the learning experience a positive one? Teachers need to be more educated about nonverbal learning disorder. I do not learn the same as everyone else, that I do better one-on-one rather in group. I wish my teachers were more empathetic. I struggle in math and science and was told by teachers I needed to study harder or to do better. That not being able to do something does not equal not working hard. It takes time and lots of questions to get there. Be patient. It's not my intention to annoy you or make you angry. A continuation of question 5. Students have different learning styles. We are not all visual learners. Sometimes we need both a PowerPoint and auditory accommodation, such as a tape recorder. Being able to meet the students' needs are really important for them to reach their maximum potential. People with nonverbal learning disorder try really hard and still at times do not succeed. We are not lazy or stupid, but rather unconventionally intelligent and exhausted from trying so hard all the time. I wish teachers knew how hard social interactions are and how to break down assignments so I can understand them. Slow processing speed does not equal mental deficiency. Appearances can be deceiving. Question 6. Please provide real-life examples of what happened to you in class when the teacher did not understand your nonverbal learning disability. Teachers flat out ignored my 504 and later IEP guidelines, nonverbal learning disability regarding lost papers and crowded worksheets. I think this was because they did not understand how a student who presented them as mature and smart could struggle with misplacing papers and interpreting information packed densely onto paper. Teachers who typically rely on visual and hands-on learning activities and their teaching strategies struggle to translate the visual kinesthetic information into verbal for me. I lost track of countless papers and assignments because teachers announced projects or gave out worksheets at the last minute while I was working hard to process the transition to my next class. Continuation of question 6. I would also get modified work when I was capable of doing the regular work. I was also forced to use tools that did not work for me at times even made things more confusing, such as graphic organizers and having to silent read with an audiobook played. There were also times in which instructions for assignments were only given verbally, and I would misinterpret or mishear what was said and did the assignment completely incorrect. Question 7. Anything else you would like to share? My experience of nonverbal learning disorder is one of duality. I can perform brilliant in some academic areas, only to get stuck on confusing diagrams in a textbook. I am encourage all educators to not assume that a student who appears intelligent and put together merits less help-sesh attention than a student who have been diagnosed with ADHD, autism, dyslexia, and etc. I have gotten so good at faking competence over the years that I can even fool myself. People with nonverbal learning disorder are smart and capable, and we are more than our disability. I wish that they understood that those with NVLD often are at a social emotional delay of 30 to 40% of their peers. I have a 10-year-old who has a nonverbal learning disorder that I have to treat at or below the level of my 5-year-old who doesn't have a learning disability in terms of social and emotional situations. Question 8, parents only. What would you wish your child's teacher knew about nonverbal learning disorder to help make their learning experience a positive one? I wish my child's teacher understood that students with nonverbal learning disorder need support with problem solving. Question 8, parents only. What would you wish your child's teacher knew about nonverbal learning disorder to help make their learning experience a positive one? I wish my teachers my child's teachers understood that students with nonverbal learning disorder need support with problem solving. Their anxiety is real, and they do need their parents to advocate for them. That my son is capable of doing anything with the right instructions. That when my girl looks like she is refusing to do the work, it's not because she's lazy. She just doesn't understand, feels overwhelmed, and does not know where to start. Because of her anxiety, she won't approach a teacher for help. It's good when I, the parent, know what is due, when tests are, and etc., so that I can help remind her and explore why something hasn't been started or completed. Sometimes work is completed, but she just forgets to turn it in. Continuation of question 8. What would you wish your child's teacher knew about Continuation of question 8. I wish my kids' teachers would realize that breaking down the steps to complete a task does not just mean I told the class what to do or the instructions were on the board. My second grader who has NVLD needs tasks broken down even further, and always protect them from bullies. You'll find that they are the most inclusive and empathetic children when given the chance. Thank you, Mrs. Robert John, for mentoring me throughout this project. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you, Mrs. Jagels, for advising me on my project and for the professional pointers. Thank you, Mrs. Lang, for helping me record my presentation and for editing the recordings. Thank you, Haley, for helping me with the PowerPoint design and tips. Thank you to all the teachers and universities that participated in the teacher university surveys. Thank you to all the parents and students who participated in the parent-student survey. Thank you to all the people who participated in the videos. Thank you, Mom, for always supporting me. I would have not been able to do this project without you. Here are some resources I used throughout this project and resources that I also found helpful. Here are some books on nonverbal learning disorder. Here's an article about it. Then here are some support groups and Facebook groups. And then will you please take the time to take my post-presentation survey? Please select and copy the link that is in the description below and paste it into a web browser to complete.